Okay, so we've all just gone through this massive global experiment in remote work, right? But now, as companies are starting to call people back to the office, it begs a really important question. I mean, is this whole thing just a temporary blip, a reaction to a crisis that's going to fade away? Well, you might think so. But if you look at the data, and more importantly, the strategic decisions being made at some of the world's top companies, they're telling a totally different story. For a growing number of businesses, this has moved way beyond just being a perk. We're talking about a core, calculated, and for many, an irreversible strategic commitment. So let's break down what that actually means. To really get our heads around this, we need to be super clear on what we're talking about. This isn't just about letting people work from home a couple of days a week. No, this is about building a company in a completely different way, from the ground up. So here's the absolute key. In a remote-first company, the office just isn't the center of the universe. The default, the core assumption, is that nobody is in the same room. Every single process, from hiring to meetings to collaboration, is designed for a distributed team right from the start. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this chart clarifies the level of commitment. A traditional office, it's all about physical presence. A hybrid model, well, it still kind of treats the office as the main hub. But remote first, it completely breaks the link between work and a physical headquarters. And as you can see, that fundamentally changes who you can hire, which, believe me, leads us to the single biggest reason for this entire shift. Forget the free coffee and the ping pong tables. The number one reason companies are going all in on remote first is for the most valuable asset any business has: people, talent. In today's economy, the war for talent is absolutely fierce, and remote first has become the ultimate weapon. Why? Simple. Because the talent demands it. The whole relationship between employers and employees has been rewritten. A whopping 71% of professionals now expect, not just want, but expect, remote or hybrid options. And this chart just lays it all out, right? For nearly 3/4 of the skilled workforce, flexibility is no longer a perk, it's a non-negotiable. If you're a company that ignores this, you're basically choosing to fish in a much, much smaller pond. But it's not just about attracting people, it's about keeping them. Now get a load of this number. Remote workers are 59% less likely to be looking for a new job. I mean, when you think about how much it costs to recruit and train someone, that one statistic right there is an absolute game changer for retention. And this right here is the strategic masterstroke. A company like Coinbase is no longer stuck hiring only the engineers who can afford to live in an expensive city like San Francisco. No way! They can hire the absolute best person for the job, whether that person is in Omaha or Berlin or Bangalore. The entire planet becomes their talent pool. Okay, so the talent hunt is huge, but it doesn't stop there. Let's move on to the second major driver, because while finding the best people is number one, the economic logic behind going remote first is just as powerful. It really breaks down into two pretty simple parts. First, you save an absolute fortune by not paying for massive, expensive office buildings in prime real estate locations. And second, you can strategically hire incredible talent in markets where salaries are lower. It's a practice known as labor arbitrage. But this creates a really fascinating strategic dilemma for companies. Do you go the pragmatic route, like Google, and adjust someone's salary based on their local cost of living? Or do you take the equity stance, like Automatic, and pay someone based on the value of their skills no matter where in the world they live? The first approach saves more money up front, but you can bet that second approach is a powerful magnet for attracting the best talent on the planet. Of course, this all sounds pretty amazing, but let's be real. It's not some magic bullet. This is a massive strategic trade-off, and it comes with some very real risks and downsides that leaders have to think about really carefully. This slide captures the core calculation perfectly. Some research suggests that fully remote work can be linked to about a 10% drop in productivity compared to working in person. But here's the thing. For many companies, that small dip is a price they are more than willing to pay for the huge gains they get from real estate savings and access to a global talent pool. It's a cold, hard, calculated business decision. And it's not just about that productivity number. There are other really tough nuts to crack. Like, how do you recreate those spontaneous water cooler moments that often spark the best ideas? How do you build a strong, unified culture when people have never even met in person? And this is a big one. How on earth do you deal with the incredibly complex web of labor laws and tax rules in dozens of different countries? These are not small problems.
So yeah, there are hurdles, but despite them, the trend is crystal clear. This is a structural, long-term shift. So let's zoom out and look at what this means for the bigger picture, for the whole global economy.
Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. By 2030, projections show there could be over 90 million digital jobs around the world that can be done remotely. That is a staggering number, and it represents a fundamental rewiring of the entire global white-collar job market.
And rewiring of this scale creates some very clear winners and losers. The tech companies that build the software to make all this work, big winners. E-commerce and logistics that support this distributed lifestyle, also winners. But the traditional commercial real estate sector, especially in those big, expensive cities, well, it's facing a massive structural challenge. And that really brings us to the heart of the whole thing. The debate over the office versus working from home, it's kind of missing the point. The remote-first revolution isn't a story about where your desk is. It's a story about the globalization of skilled labor. It's about a new, borderless arena for competition.
So I'll leave you with this final question to think about. Whether you're leading a company or you're an individual professional, when your competition is no longer just down the street, but literally anywhere on the planet, what is your biggest competitive advantage?